Greetings, this is Fred in Alaska. Thanks for joining me. Had a memorial service yesterday for my buddy's dad that we had to attend, and that's why I didn't have a chance to do anything. What I want to share with you today is something that happened to a former campground host. People will volunteer for parks up here, whether it be a river park or a national park or whatever. They usually volunteer and park their RV and keep an eye on the grounds and stuff. You know, a lot of retirees do it, and it's actually a really fulfilling job for someone who's retired to spend their summer in Alaska just checking out, you know, being part of the scene and telling people, you know, giving them guidance on what trail's good and what's not and what have you. Well, this happened to a park host that used to host a park roughly about 20 years ago. And what ended up happening to this retired couple is well, for one, they no longer host. They still come up, they still spend time in their RV, but now they don't feel comfortable staying in one place longer than a night or two, which is, you know, hypervigilance or paranoia, whatever you want to call it. It still affects people. So what happened with them is it was their 5th year hosting in the same place, and they had went on a hike with a small group of people that asked for some assistance to something about a certain trailhead. I'm being very vague on purpose. It was asked of me to be, because as far as park hosts go, it's a relatively small community. Anyway, so, you know, I told her, you know, I'd be as vague as possible. So forgive that. It's not to keep anything from you guys. It's mainly to just demonstrate their behavior. So they do this hike and they show these people, you know, what they wanted to know and what they wanted to find out. As her and her husband are taking their time, because the party continued on. They only went for about a mile or so, and, you know, gave them some directions in a spot that could be, you know, a little confusing because there's 3 different trails that split off from the one. Well, on their way back, they kept hearing a grunting and a huffing, which for them was nothing new. They've dealt with bears in the area. They were not unaware of the bears, so they figured, okay, we're being paced by this bear. It'll lose interest. You know, we don't have any food items on us. You know, we're brightly dressed. You know, they had some bear spray. They really weren't concerned, and being, you know, doing it for a long time, in their eyes, they felt, you know, they understood the park, the area that they were hosting pretty well. So they continue on, and nothing happens, but they continually hear this huffing every now and then, and it kind of tapers off the closer they get back to the trailhead where they have their RV stationed and all that. So they go in, and it's about midday, and they're doing their lunch thing. And as she's working in the little sink, looking out the window of this RV, she notices something dark in the woods just kind of move. Said it looked just like a shadow, just moved, thought nothing of it. Now, her husband was outside on that same side of the RV. What he saw was a hairy man looking at them and then moving away once he made eye contact with it. His view of it was that of a caveman with lots of hair. And that's fairly similar to a lot of the other, well, it's along the same lines of the description I get from a lot of different places. So he's immediately freaked out. He comes back into the RV and he sits down. He's pale white. His wife asks him, you know, hey, what's going on? Why are you so, you know, what's going on with you? Do you need a doctor? Immediately concerned about his health, rightfully so. He explains to her what he saw. So it confirmed what she saw. She just didn't see all of it. She just saw the movement moving away. And he said he didn't know what to do with that. He didn't know what to make of it, what to feel about it, because they never had anything like that happen. So they just start discussing and debating whether or not the grunts they heard was this thing following them. So they came to the conclusion, you know, that yeah, that's what was, you know, following behind them or paralleling them or, you know, following them out, whatever you want to call it. Now, as they debated this and stuff, way off, it sounded like miles and miles away, they heard a scream. Their concern is the scream came from the direction they left the people on the trail. So immediately they're concerned about other people's safety and they don't know what to do. They're the camp host. They feel an obligation and a moral duty to speak out, reach out, and inform people. But how? You know, how? Hi, I'm your camp host. Hey, watch out for the Bigfoot. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't instill any kind of, I mean, it's such a taboo subject for a lot of people. The acceptance part of it is just, a lot of people just laugh at them. And they realized it. So what they did was they went and talked to a park ranger. And when they approached the ranger, they asked him, you know, what's with the screaming? What's with this thing we saw? Because they were blunt, straightforward. Hey, we saw a fucking hairy man. What the hell is going on here? Why weren't we informed sooner? I could have had a heart attack. You know, it could have been ugly. And the park ranger just looked at him and said, I can't report that. I can't report it. All I can report is you saw a bear moving in the woods. They said it wasn't a fucking bear. It was a Bigfoot. It was a Sasquatch. It was moving in the woods. It was looking at me. I know what I saw. And he was like, well, understand, I can't put that on paper. I can put down, you saw a bear in this area, and we'll put up bear warning signs. So that's inevitably what happens. A couple nights later of just quiet, no screaming, no sighting of anything, they're hyper vigilant. So hyper vigilant, her husband in the meantime went to a local store and purchased a high caliber, very powerful rifle. He wanted to have protection other than bear spray because he felt it was not enough to just have bear spray. They were committed for the summer, and they wanted to fulfill their commitment and not leave on bad terms. But they weren't. It's not like the Fish and Wildlife trooper didn't believe them or the park ranger didn't believe them. It's the fact that they could not themselves report it. Now, that's very frustrating for people who have witnessed things because, for one, it makes the person who's seen it look like a kook. And if anyone goes to check out a report on it, it's going to say a bear sighting. So, you know, you're getting it from all directions. You're not getting a, what would be the proper way to put it? The truth and the information is not being processed to the people in a direct manner. It's being filtered through the lens of it was a bear, it was a unknown bear, it was a large bear, things of this nature, and not it was a hairy man, it screamed at us, it ran away, or it threw rocks at us. None of that stuff gets, it just doesn't get reported. So after a few nights of nothing, they've calmed down from the incident and they kind of start laughing about it, like, wow, we saw a Sasquatch, holy shit. You know, and the whole time they never had an interest, not once. You know, these were retired academics. You know what I mean? They're retired from the East Coast. What I would call Ivy Leaguers, not your run-of-the-mill, just, you know, community college professor with some weird outlooks. These were, you know, professional people. Their whole lives, you know, they're all about their academics. So their worldview changed drastically after that. So as time goes on during their visit, they decide, you know, we're not going to stay cooped up. And the husband didn't feel comfortable packing that large caliber rifle with them when they went to hike. But they decided they weren't going to let it ruin their, you know, their stay there. So they go out the same trailhead. And they go out to the same area because, you know, they're retired, they're not feeble, but, you know, they have their limits. They knew their limits well, so they got to the same area where they showed the group what direction to go, and they decided to hang out there and just kind of look around. He brought his camera, and she had the bear spray, and a walking stick. So they're just sitting there, and he's just taking random pictures of, you know, the wildlife, the fauna, the forest, all that stuff. And as they're going along, on their way back, they hear the huffing again. They hear it again in the near distance. And so the husband, in a fit of anger of being run off from something he felt he was being run off from and that he loved, he wasn't gonna stand for it. Gets the pepper or the bear spray from his wife and walks off the trail a little bit, and she's freaking out. Don't you fucking go in those woods. You stay the hell out here. You saw it. We're not messing with it. He said, I want it to leave us alone. She talks him out of going into the woods with the bear spray. They continue back to their RV in a quickened pace, and he's pissed. He's very upset. So he decides, you know what? We're gonna go post up. If it follows us back, I'm gonna shoot it. I'm gonna shoot it so it doesn't follow us. And she's saying, you've lost your mind. You don't shoot this fucking thing. If it follows us back, we will get a hold of the proper authorities for them to come and deal with it. And he points out, well, look at how we were treated when we brought up our incident of basically a scream and this thing off in the distance, and it left. What are they gonna do with that? So they debate that on their walk back, and they get there and they decide, you know what, we're just gonna have to go and report it again, you know, because as they continued on, the same thing happened, huffing and at them at a little bit of a distance in the trees and paralleling them on their way out. So they get back, they jump in their little runabout car, and they go over to the ranger's office. Well, when they get to the ranger's office, the park ranger, he had 4 other people there, and they were all drilling this guy about, hey, why weren't we being told about this? Why aren't we being told? So they come up and they listen, and these 4 separate individuals are in front of this guy saying, hey, we saw a Bigfoot, we saw a Sasquatch, what do we do? The guy goes, I can't take that report. However, I could tell you at X, Y, and Z Ridge and X, Y, and Z Lookout, there's been a lot of reported activity that we can neither confirm or deny or do anything with. I mean, that in essence, their hands are tied. No matter what you go and tell them, to a certain level, they may believe you personally, but professionally, they cannot act on that. They cannot push that paperwork forward. It will make it to a certain distance, and then it'll be non-existent. So again, they felt disheartened that basically they're going to have to do it and do it alone. So they go back, and the husband's fuming. He's really feeling insulted that with his integrity as a former academic, that he would be questioned. His integrity, his honor, his his whole existence would be questioned. Even though they didn't question him, I understand what he means, because, you know, to be dismissed is a form of disrespect. So when they're being dismissed, you know, he took it very personally. So they get back, and they're hanging out, and he's really fuming, discussing with his wife what they want to do. She says she wants no part of it, and that maybe they should stop their volunteer contract and leave the area. And they agreed to, and they agreed that at the end of the week they'd give them a couple days to get a replacement in, as a site host or whatever, and they would go on about their way. So over the course of the next 2 nights, they went right back after they decided that, caught the ranger, let him know, hey, we're no longer going to be chaperoning or hosting this spot. We'll be leaving in 2 days. He was like, okay, I understand. I'm sorry, I can't do more. So they get back, and in essence, they're ready to roll. They just have to close some cupboards and you know, do whatever with the awning on their RV. So they get all that squared away, ready to go, and they stayed real close to their RV during the course of the next couple days. The 2 nights before they left, they each woke up individually of each other each night to they usually have a blinder, a fold-up blinder that sits in front of the front window so people can't just see in as they're walking by to the trailheads, because they park their RVs right in the parking area. So whoever's coming in, you know, they see whoever's coming in and whoever's going. And they didn't put it up because a group of younger people had left, and they were kind of keeping an eye out the window for any illegal drinking and illegal activities, that kind of thing. And they just didn't shut their little accordion style blind thing in front of the window. But individually, each one of them at a point in time had woken up to this thing staring in the front, and were locked up with fear and just basically covered their heads and sucked it up. Same thing with the wife. She said she seen the same thing, and it was a couple times each night they woke up to this thing just standing there staring at them. They got out of there, no incidents, just outside of the staring and the screams and whatnot. You know, there's a lot of people out there that are dismissed, they're discredited, and they're basically just disrespected merely for mentioning, hey, there's something going on that we don't know. Take a look at it to the authorities, and they just, you know, they don't do nothing. I haven't seen them do anything. Who knows what they're doing in the background? You know, I talk to people a lot. They'll send in emails, nothing to do with Alaska, just kind of asking for advice or whatever. You know, there's people that no longer go in the woods and hunt. You know, there's mothers concerned about their sons, and their sons just holding it in and shutting down at the thought of the topic because of the experience they had. It fucked them up from going in the woods. You know, they have these weird behaviors. It's like a stalker. It's like a stalker that feeds on your fear almost. There's a lot of anecdotal evidence that they just, even though they can end you, they don't. It's like they try to draw every ounce of fear they can out of you, which is in and of itself very just odd. There's so much more going on we don't understand. Now, up here in Alaska, I have a few of their behaviors I feel are pretty concrete, as far as when they see you, they want you to see you. If they are nearby, they will make it clear to you and come in on you. I expressed to everyone again, go watch that Keithy66's metal detecting channel out of Fairbanks, Alaska. He's a dentist. He has a Bigfoot little video up. It's about 10 minutes long. It's roughly 5 minutes in. Howl scream in the distance. Moments later, it's closer. It's throwing things. Then it gets even closer with this god-awful scream. Go check it out. That is a perfect example of what I'm talking about when it comes to what I feel is classic behavior up here in Alaska. They will make themselves known. Problem is, when they make themselves known, there's more. There's more of them around. There have been a couple of reports I have that it seemed that they were solo. I wasn't there. I can't, you know, I don't sit there and go to every site of whatever happens and try to investigate and prove, disprove. I already know they exist. I've known since I was a little kid. Same with everyone else I grew up with. There's not a question for us. I'm not out to seek evidence. I mean, when I go film the documentary, trust me, if there's evidentiary footage to be had, I'm gonna get it. If I come across tracks, I'm gonna record them. The upside down trees, I'm gonna record that. But I'm not going to research. I'm actually going to attempt to get some compelling footage. Honestly, the Nuyahkuk River. Damn. Sorry, our fine military from Elmendorf is running maneuvers. So, when I go out there, I'm strongly confident in the fact that there will definitely be a lot of evidence right there. In about 85% of the encounters I hear about the Nuyahkuk, they all happen within 24 hours of being on that river. Our incident was less than a handful of hours of getting there. We were there a couple hours before dark, and then the shit went down. My cousin Nikolai Chris, same thing. They were there a couple hours, shit was going down. I don't know, it's different. I'm hoping that with the interactive map at the website, you know, I can, you know, you can kind of zoom in and see areas coming to life as far as how much activity is going on in those areas and the approximate date time type of thing. But there's just a large portion in the Bristol Bay watershed, and I'm looking forward to getting to that documentary. Things are in the works. People have been asking about merchandise. That may very well be something that happens real soon here. What else? Yeah, anyone, I mean no offense to anybody, if they ask certain questions about whatever I'm doing, as far as how I make my videos, how I present them or whatever. I do me, and you know, I'm not I'm not going to change anything. I mean no offense by that, but I didn't start this to please people. I started it to inform people, and take no offense to that. It's just if there's certain quirks I have that you may not care for, well, you know, I don't know what to tell you. And till the next time.